Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. This is your brother, Preacher Miles, the host of the ShOUT Show, the SOS. Hope that you're having an amazing Tuesday. Just a heads up off the top, I'm suffering a little bit from a summer cold, the dreaded summer cold. So I ask that everybody bear with me, be patient while I try and hold on to my stream of consciousness, if you will, and be able to deliver a meaningful product, at least for this episode of the ShOUT Show. First and foremost, I want to give thanks, and I don't do this in the month. I want to give thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God Almighty, because a lot of times I find myself, like other people, we find ourselves in a rush to live this life. What I mean in a rush to live this life is that we become impatient with the things that we want to happen for us, to happen for other people. We desire situations that may not realistically be for us, but we don't mind pushing that way. In fact, sometimes we will promote a particular type of lifestyle or a particular stance to get what we want. Today's episode of the ShOUT Show is Halal Chicken Soup for the Soul. Now, there is something called Halal Chicken Soup for the Soul, but I thought I would put my own spin on it, give you a couple preachisms, if you will, and maybe share some stories about some of the things I've been through, some of the perspective that I've been able to gather, and some of the people I've actually met in my life. And inshallah, I'll be able to share some insights. Maybe there's something helpful with what I'm about to say. Maybe there's something insightful that can be beneficial to you or your family. That's what it is, because just straight off the top, when you're sick, I think people don't realize or appreciate the concept of being sick. The concept of being sick has a lot to do with the fact that when we're sick, we don't understand that there's a blessing in recovery. That every death that happens in the world from the beginning of time to now has been predicated with illness, which is a function, if you will, functionality or non-functionality of the human body. And what I mean by that is, the human body is, in many regards, is a time capsule. Like, we're able to do enough things in this carcass, in this housing, that we hope, carry over to other people, that we hope are beneficial to other people. When you're parents, you hope that, what you do in this earth helps your children when you leave, or things that you are committed to will help others, maybe not your parents, but, almost like teaching, the credo of a teacher is understanding that you teach for tomorrow. You don't teach for today, you teach for tomorrow. And even in this regard, as I begin to start this thing with Halal Chicken Soup for the Soul, I would like to put out there in some regards that in the world, there is a movement, a very, very conscious movement to, one, disregard the importance of time, but two, disregard the importance of simplicity. When I watch problems as a comedian, as an observer of the world, a lot of times, you're watching things play out, but there's always a simple, there's really a simple, I don't want to say answer, but there's a simple beginning. And I don't think these days we really appreciate the simple beginning to communication. If there's a debate, there's a simple beginning to that debate. In business, there's a simple beginning to business. And understanding that these are the parameters in which we're going to do business, live our lives, have our marriages, have our children, whatever it is, even your relationship to your higher power, whatever religious persuasion you are. I'm Muslim. Even my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins with the simple understanding. For all the scholarship in the world, for Muslims, it begins with La ilaha illallah Muhammadan Rasulullah. This is not a relationship with the Quran. This is a creedal statement stating that I am opening up myself, I am availing myself to these resources. This is the simple agreement right up front. When you say the Shahadatain, what you're saying in some regards is, I believe and I'm willing to act in this way. I didn't say act perfectly. I didn't say act efficiently. But you've changed the narrative from a simple beginning. So we're going to be talking about that here on the Shout Out Show today. We're going to take a quick break, get started, and we'll be right back. This is Preacher Miles talking about halal chicken soup for the soul. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. Listen, we're going to go ahead and get into a Shout Out Show family, a Shout Out Show soldiers, our Hall of Fame, if you will, our comment section of fame, if you will. First, shout out to Sister Ree. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sister Ree. Remind me that I need to give you that greeting. Sometimes I just say, hey, Sister Ree, I need to give you a full greeting. So forgive your brother for that. I hope that you're doing well. Derek is doing well. Jawan is doing well. All the peace, the mercy and the blessings of God on you and your family. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to seeing you soon. Next up, my main man, Altar Rashid, better known as Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, our Canadian envoy to the show. Man, we appreciate you joining the platform, man. I look forward to seeing our Canadian envoy on the show. I will not lie. Altar is one of our day ones, brothers and sisters. So if you look at the amount of shows we have, everybody here in the section has pretty much been here for at least 85 to 90% of the shows. And I'm like, that is an amazing statistic when you think about it. Okay. Next up, my little brother, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, talking about day one before the shout out show. This is my brother who's been with me for quite a long time. It's amazing when you have friends and you can talk about your friendship over a span of 30 plus years. JT is one of these people, always looking out for his brother. I met JT when he was in the Army, and he was actually in a platoon with my cousin Earl. And I was living in Largo at the time, my cousin Lisa. And I still remember when he first came over, and we just kind of laughed and joked. And he was from Milwaukee, and I graduated from Marquette University, and I wind up going back to Milwaukee to teach. And I actually saw him walking down the street by a bus, like a bus depot. And I looked at him and I pulled. And I was like, JT, John, and that's it, man. And, we have been locked in friends for quite a long time. So good to see him on the show. Next up, my main man, Eric Carter. How you doing, beloved? Hope you're doing well. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Blessing us with your presence, brother Eric. Man, I'm in DC, so I'm going to say Eric. I hope you don't mind. Man, we appreciate you coming on the show. And we have to have a bit of a section where we can just appreciate our folks. It doesn't have to be anything major. I know we did the iftar this year, which was really, really fun that everybody got to have their iftar meal. But I mean, just, I wish StreamYard came up with a little bit more technology where we could just bring people on the show and let them star. But, I'm talking about it. Maybe it'll happen. Next up. What's going on? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother Bilal, Salahuddin, and his queen, Sister Sonia. He said he's flying solo today, but that's okay. Sister Sonia is here in spirit, and believe me, when you come home, when she comes home, give her salams from all of us. Everybody here on the ShOUT Show, the ShOUT Show family, give her salams, give her a big hug. We appreciate her. And we know that if she's not here, it's for a good reason. She's trying to make it happen. All right? Okay. And next up, of course, we got Sister Mary Moss, better known as Mama Son, who has always been you talk about a day one, day one. That's a birthday day one. Carrying in the body day one. Carrying 9 months day one. And she's trying to take care of her baby. Like I said, I got a little bit of a summer cold. I think I extended myself a little bit too much after the Muslim Comedy Festival. I made some poor decisions and extended myself. Now I'm paying for it. This is what happens. And I want to give a shout out to my main man, Ben Abdul Haq. We were driving up to Yellow Springs for Dave Chappelle's last finale comedy shows up in Ohio. And we were supposed to split the driving of 485 miles each way. I want to shout out Brother Ben, who drove a combined 85 miles. So I did almost 900 miles, and I'm paying for it right now. I probably shouldn't have said that, but I don't give a damn. Okay. Let's get to this thing about, and I want to give a shout out, of course, to Sister Satana, who passed successfully. She passed her proficiency Arabic language test. Alhamdulillah, we're going to give her a shout out for that. She did pass. She will be moving on to the next level of language, Arabic language, and studying. That's a big shout out to Sister Satana. And again, a big shout out to Sister Satana for last week. Believe me, we don't have a show for the Muslim Comedy Festival. We don't have an audience. We don't have a show without her hard work and due diligence. I'm going to give a shout out to Muhammad Oda and his wife. Big shout out to Mahmoud Kazmi. Big shout out to Masjid Muhammad, Sister Kafi. I always say coffee. It's Kofi. I know it's Kofi, but I say coffee. Sanka, same thing. Shout out to the community that came out, and of course everybody who rolled in, if you will. Everybody that rolled in to support us. Imam Johari, Sister Dr. Nisa Muhammad, my main man Jamil, Imam Talib, who came through. Imam Talib, my main man from Masjid Muhammad. It was just thinking, my man, and I give my man Ben Abdul Haq a hard time, but good brother, beautiful brother. And I do love him. If I didn't like him, I would not mention him on the show. Hey, what's going on, Brother Muhammad? How are you doing, brother? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, man. Good to see you on the show, brother. You doing well? Let us know how you doing, man. Don't just pop up. We appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. So this is what I'm going to do. I want to talk a little bit about, this halal chicken soup for the soul. I mentioned two things at the top of the telecast. Number one, there's just not a disrespect. There's a long disrespect against value and time. And there's a long disrespect of not paying attention, not of truly appreciating simplicity. I thank you, Brother Muhammad. I'm trying to hang in, inshallah. You're doing well as well. My thing with simplicity, and I will go to the fact that when I became Muslim, one of the things that appealed to me was that I didn't have to have a lot of a cumbersome engagement with Islam on the way to being Muslim. Now, let me tell you what I mean. That if the need and the drive were there, that the passion for this religion was there, the passion to know my God in a different way that I had known before, if it was there, there was an immediacy there. And when someone told me what Shahada was, I thought it was totally something different. You see what I'm saying? I thought it was something different. And brother said, no. He said, it's these things that tie us together in a universal bond. Now, I'm saying this because, and I do talk about when I took my Shahada on stage, but I'm saying this because the beauty and value in that has been lost. Excuse me. That people have complicated even this religion of Islam to mean something, to politicize it, to culturalize it. And in some regards, it loses its initial excellence and beauty. There's I'll give you an example. There's a great Sufi story. You probably heard it before. Sufi, whatever. But there was an old man, and he would go in between the borders of these two countries. And the old man had a donkey. And he would go to the border, and every time they would search everything, looking for what he was smuggling, they never found anything. They let him go. He come back, they searching for everything. They never found anything. They went through everything, and they let him go. He would come with the same donkey. They take and they never found him. And this is the way it went for a lot of years. Finally, one of the guys said, "Hey, old man, you know that we're trying to catch you smuggling. We haven't found anything on you." He said, "Let me ask you a question." He said, "What are you smuggling?" The guy said, "Donkeys." He said donkeys. And what that means is sometimes we just don't appreciate that the truth can be a very beautiful, simple thing. My philosophy is that when people complicate the truth, is that they're trying to put a different value on something, or change its perspective for their own personal gains. Oftentimes I find that it's easier, even if it's in a difficult situation that you find yourself in, you have to admit to something that maybe is not so pleasurable or whatever, but you'll find if the engagement is a simple engagement at the beginning, it does make the situation better. Perhaps this whole idea of repenting when we make mistakes, repenting, or tauba, praying tauba, these things are basic, but it says in all of the religious texts the importance of taking whatever it is, anxiety, the sin, taking it to God. You are taking it to someone, someplace who ideologically speaking, understands the concept of human behavior. The whole idea of something being written talks about that behavior is not only manageable, but you can forecast behavior. You can predict what behavior is going to be. You know, sometimes when we talk about poverty, the fear of poverty, the people who fear poverty most are not the ones who are impoverished. They do that, but it's the ones who deny poverty, the ones who look at it and look the other way. It haunts them. And so when we talk about this simplicity is so important. My mentor, one of my mentors, and I speak on both of them, Harry Weber, said something to me one time that was very simple but earth shattering. And he talked about the breakdown of activism in communities of color. And what he told me, what I thought was interesting, hold on, I got a quick message. What he told me was our culture, when you are constantly in a struggle, you're constantly in a place where you're fighting trauma, that people are visiting trauma on you. He said it's an amazing thing that people cease to understand that in that trauma, there's simplicity. The awareness of something happens, something has happened, is more important than the idea that I'm going to deal with it at this point in time. Just a simple prescription that this has happened changes the whole. It's like if there were a fire in the house, you don't talk about how you're going to rebuild after fire. You talk about the actual fire in the house and the damage it could do. And everything else that comes from that flows out of the fact that we've identified what the problem is, and at another point in time, what the potential of the problem is. Now let's flip it around. Sometimes we don't actually identify the potential of good problems, of good opportunities, because we're so engulfed in trying to make it seem like we're the only ones that can produce this. So listen, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back, and we're going to talk about the other side of this. We're going to talk about how there's very, very constructed advocacy to make sure that people don't appreciate time. We'll be right back.
Hey, babies, welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just got to hear Don't Get the COVID.
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now is the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
All right, we're back. Shout out to Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. Shout out to my main man, Ijaz Saeed. To get back to what we were talking about, this whole idea of there is an advocacy against the idea of valuing time. It reminds me of a story of my big brother, Reginald Kitchen. When I first met him, I was in a job, and I kind of talked myself into this job as a director of youth programs in Virginia. I had a lot of pressure. I was the youngest senior officer in the state of Virginia. People looked at me like I was a kid. And he knew I was in my head. He knew I was over water. I was in above my whatever. I was underground with this thing. I was in deep. And he pulled me to the side. And he said, given the time, would you be able to produce the output that these people are looking for? Listen to what I'm saying. He said, if you had the time, would you be able to produce what these people are looking for? And then he said, can you exceed what they're producing? Well, can you exceed what they're asking? Can you exceed their expectations? And I said, creatively, yes. He said, in that space, then feel free to call me. He said, feel free to reach out to me. He said, because if that's the way you're handling it, then you have a bigger purpose beyond this recreation center. And he was right. I called him because I had a program that had been scheduled. It was a pump, pass, kick program, and I had no equipment. The person who preceded me had spent the money on a budget. I had no money for equipment. And I called Brother Reginald. Hey, brother, listen, I need some help. He said, what do you need? I said, well, I have this event, pump, pass, kick. I said, I need some footballs. I need some basketballs. I need some mittens. And he said, no problem. He said, I got you. And he came over, true to his word. At the time he said he was going to come over with a big, large sack. Hear me now. A big, large sack of equipment. My eyes lit up. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I need. I'm in over my head. This brother saved me. And I start going to this expository of how this is so great. Now I could do all these things. Listen to how I'm hyping myself up. I took the stuff while Reggie was standing, and I opened it up and I dumped it out. Hear me now. I dumped it out. And every basketball, every football, every tetherball, volleyball was flat. They were all flat. And I'm looking at him going, what the, it's in my mind, my inside voice, what the hell is this? And he said, young brother, is there a problem? I said, yeah, black man. I said, all these balls are flat. And he looked at me with a straight face and didn't miss a beat. He said, you asked me for balls. You didn't ask me for air. And at that point, I knew we were going to be friends. So whenever Allah called him home or called me home. Because the insightfulness of it is, you can't build things off of other people's kindness. That kindness accepted should be bare bones at the most. You should be willing to build off of somebody's generosity, not count on them making your situation lighter. And the reason why people do it is because they don't respect time. And as I filled up every ball with air, I was thankful. Because when you start thinking, had Reginald bought all the balls that he could have and put air in them, they wouldn't fit in the sacks. And after the program was over, I took the air out of the balls and I put them back. And I said, you know what? This life and this religion and this job and this conceptual life that I'm trying to have, this is about thinking. And we don't think. My brother JT is on the show right now. There's a great story. And I'm going to say this when I want to remember this. There's a great story about equity and sharing. It was about two brothers who were poor. I printed this out and I put it to JT and put it in a frame. It was about two brothers who were sharing. They were in dire situations. They worked hard, but they were poor. And one day they were working and an extra bag of rice somehow appeared. And one brother said to the other brother, you take it. And the other brother said, no, you take it. And they went back and forth. And listen to the reasoning. One brother told his younger brother, you take this rice because you need to be able to have something of value to show when you're trying to get a wife. The younger brother said to the older brother, no, you take the rice because you have children. And they would give each other the rice and take it back. And they woke up in the morning and the rice was exactly where it had started. That, brothers and sisters, that is the scope of being able to touch one another's soul. And when I say touch the soul, what I mean is the impactfulness of kindness, the impactfulness of being able to have insight to understand what other people need. Harry Weber said something that I'm going to repeat. I didn't say it earlier, but he said something I'm going to repeat. And I think it really applies to religious communities. So here goes. What he said about black people. He said black people, theoretically, theologically, in many regards, he said we're great at making moves, but horrible at making decisions. Great at making moves, horrible at making decisions. Can read the Quran all day, can become Hafiz of Quran all day, but can't make a decision away from that Quran that affects or impacts our community in a meaningful way. And it's not just African Americans. I look around the globe. Muslim countries that are led by the Quran, and they are in shambles. They're amongst the most poor countries in the world. You say, what is it? It's because everybody is in this theorizing and theological context, but they're not understanding the importance that at some point in time, the simple things await you. The simple things need to be addressed. Time has to be addressed, right? Time has to be addressed. And the second thing that has to be addressed, simplicity. All right, everybody. That's our show. Hopefully I'll be back on tomorrow and I'll feel a little bit better. But I hope everybody got some. And I want to give a shout out to Brother Abdul Aziz. I know I put you up during the thing. Thanks so much, Brother Abdul. I appreciate you coming on Much love to you. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to your family. Everybody, this is the SOS Preacher Mars. Remember, value simplicity, value time. I'm out. Take care.